Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Group Chat with Leon Scorpius. I'm Leon Scorpius. You can find me at Leon Scorpius on Twitter. And I am joined by the lovely Kae.
Yo.
And of course our founder, Tay himself.
Oh, hi!
So Kae and Tay are here with me today. As promised, we are going over Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Now, is Sparky gonna be upset because he's not here?
You know, I think that Sparky will have plenty of time to follow up with his comments as well.
Okay.
To be fair, I think you are more ahead in the game than Sparky
That's
is.
true, I am. And he's also having fun in Hawaii right now, so we don't feel too bad for him.
I can't feel bad for him. He's in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's been nice.
We should probably mention that as both of us are fairly far in the game, this podcast will contain spoilers for Breath of the Wild.
Most likely, yeah.
Major spoiler alerts.
So,
Yep.
You've been warned. If you don't care, hope you keep enjoying, or listening and enjoying.
Yes, but,
Or
you know,
whatever.
Tay did mention, you know, if we can try to be less spoiler at the beginning, that's, you know, we'll see what we can go do. But, you know, it'll be part review and should I play this game, but more of, wow, this game is amazing. Let's talk about how amazing it is. So that's kind of where we're at with today's podcast.
Yeah. So, I'm at the point in the game where I could easily, like, I've done everything pretty much except for take on Ganon, and I have some shrines left. So that just kind of gives people reference how far in the game I am. I'm ready. I could go take on Ganon right now if I wanted.
Yep.
Kay is just slightly behind me.
I need one more memory and then to find the ultimate memory.
Yeah. So, but let's go back to the beginning.
Let's start from the very beginning. So this is a Legend of Zelda game. To be transparent, you are playing it on the Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
Not on the Wii U. So, you know, there may be some small intricacy differences there, but it is a Zelda game. It plays like a Zelda game. If you are a Zelda fan, there's puzzles, there's arrow shooting, there's bombs,
Yep.
there's, you know, these little dungeons, there's...
Although it is like a Zelda game, like it has a Zelda feel, but it's also the most different Zelda game that you will ever play.
So let's talk about, from a concept perspective, what's different?
So, start off, you do have dungeons still, like main dungeons with the puzzles. There's 4 main dungeons. Technically 5 if you count Ganon's castle. And they have like a dungeon map and everything.
Hyrule Castle.
Hyrule
Ganon
Castle.
is squatting.
That's right.
Like
That's true.
This is not Ganon's castle. Zelda's holding her own, making sure he's contained.
That's true. So
Like, this is Hyrule
So
Castle.
that you've got the 5 main dungeons. They're the bigger dungeons. They have like some dungeon maps, puzzles. But then peppered throughout the whole world, there's 120 shrines. And the shrines are like mini dungeons where there's little puzzles for you to solve.
120 of them.
There's 120,
Yes.
yes.
And this is a completionist type of quest, or are they actually vital to the game?
Yes and no.
So if you complete 4 of them, so you get a 4 completion, you can trade 4 of what you get at the end of them. They're spirit orbs. And you can trade those spirit orbs for either a heart container or a stamina upgrade.
Huh.
So early on, it's quite helpful to just increase your hearts and...
Yeah, because the game
increase
is
your
very
hearts.
unforgiving.
Yeah, it is. So increase your hearts as much as possible and then start building up your stamina. Because the good news is that for both hearts and stamina, you can cook things in your environment to artificially increase them. So if you notice that you're running out of stamina a lot, you might end up cooking yourselves a lot of stamina elixirs. So if you're trying to... and the game is all about exploring, and the game actively rewards you for going, this looks a little bit weird. I'm gonna climb it. Like, it definitely rewards you for that sort of behavior. So if you realize that you can't actually produce that behavior because you're running out of stamina, you can make yourself things in world that help you complete those tasks.
But they are temporary, so once you've used them up, then you are back to your square one. And as I said, the game is unforgiving. Like, I believe one of the creators was, I don't remember if it was Miyamoto or Ananuma. I don't remember who it was, but they said like, oh, dying is part of the fun. And so it's not quite as bad as like Dark Souls or
Is it like Lara Croft? Like, oh man, this death is.
no, not like that.
no.
Where they're like, how can we kill her in a fun way? No,
No, torture porn? No.
yeah, it's not torture porn like Tomb Raider. No, but like you'll just be going along and suddenly you'll be ganged up by 5 or 6 mob or boko boblins or however you say it, and they'll just sit there and just murder you.
So I have noticed too in the game, it's really great that when you start out and they know how many hearts you have. I don't know the exact algorithm that decides this, but when you start out, you only have the lower level bosses. They can still kick your ass. They can still completely kill you. But as you start getting further and further along, they start to add each of the harder sort of minions.
So like in most Zelda games and just games in general, you usually have the red minion, and then there's a blue one. It's like in the old school Zelda games, you had the red knights, then the blue knights. Much in that way, they have that in this, where you have the red, the blue, then the black, and so we've had started showing up the silver, and the silver are extremely rare or extremely tough.
They do pay out quite a bit.
They do pay out, yeah.
If you do beat them, you get a lot of rare materials that you will need at that point of the game. So it does seem to be very well balanced in terms of giving you enemies, and there's no point where you're like, oh, I've got all the dungeons, I'm super badass, I can take on anything. No, even at that point in the game, there are still enemies now that can completely wipe you out still if you're not careful. So it's really nice balanced to make sure it's always a fairly difficult game.
That's
no matter
good
where
news
you are.
from a challenging perspective. I've heard that feedback as well. Is like this is a hardcore game. You did mention that it does veer from the traditional Zelda though. What are some of the major differences that you would say?
Yeah, so like I said, the mini shrines, instead of just having like 4 to 7 big dungeons, and each in the old ones, each dungeon you would get an item, and that item would help you unlock other parts of the map. As Kae was saying, this game wants you to explore.
It's a little more open world.
There's no area of the map really unlocked to you. At the beginning of the game, you see an area you want to go to, you can go there. You might need to work like shit, cook something to get more stamina to climb that high, but nothing there is hindering you. Like I said, you might run into some stronger enemies up in that area, but you can,
you can sneak past them.
Yeah, sneak past them, give yourself more hearts.
So with this open world feel, does that mean that one person's playthrough can be very different than another person's playthrough?
Yes. So we will watch each other play, and we'll still come up with it. We've still had 2 very different game experiences. We went through the dungeons in fairly much the same order, but we've discovered we will come home from work and find the other person going, guess what I found today? So, and this has been consistent. This is, we've found very different things. I came home the other day and I was like, I bought a house. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, I bought a house. And now I have furniture and stuff. And I can place extra weapons and it was in a village that we've been to a bunch of times, but we just didn't explore as much because we're like, oh, look at all of these other things around here. So we have both played very different ways. I think we have different ways of figuring out what is more important.
Now, in full transparency, have you played blind, or do you go and look on the internet? Do you watch videos to see how to get past certain areas, or has it been mostly just fulfilling, just going in blind?
For most part, blind for me. There's been a few times where we know something has to be done, and we've exhausted all our ideas, and finally just go, screw it, look it up because I cannot figure this out. Yeah, so some of the little side quest stuff where just I can't figure this out.
So the usual where you'd have to look 1 or 2 things up, like the old days where you go and find that old dust off the Game Pro and find out where the cheat code was.
Yeah,
exactly.
I've also heard the feedback that this game is actually very approachable to new gamers.
Oh, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
From a gameplay, what makes it easy for a brand new gamer to actually get into this Zelda versus other Zeldas?
It is very structured in how it sort of leads you through the game. So it does present you with an option. Like when you first start, it starts giving you, it gives you, you can't, so it basically puts you in a situation where you can't explore too much. I mean, it's still a fairly large chunk of the map, but in order to get to the rest of the world, you need a paraglider. And in order to get that paraglider, you have to essentially unlock all of the weapons and all of the, essentially, your
shrines.
arsenal. Yeah. So your arsenal of tools, and then you can therefore go and explore.
Yeah.
Do you think the level of exploration is appealing to casual gamers like Minecraft is, or some of those other games? Is that a reason why it seems to be approachable?
I don't know, because I know about some people, like Sparky is one of them, and like I'm this way a little bit. I know my brother, I think, was where the open world games sometimes it gets to the point where you're just like, I never finish them because there's just so much to do that I can't stay focused, and then I eventually just lose interest because I just get to the point where I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore.
Would you say the opposite is true, though, for a casual gamer, though, where things are too linear that they get bored of the way that they are going,
Yeah.
and so they kind of like the idea of doing what they want to do?
And I'm in that boat as well, where if it's too linear for me, like Skyward Sword, I hate it. Final Fantasy 13 was
Final
also
Fantasy 10.
Final Fantasy 10.
Which makes me sad. Why haven't you finished Final Fantasy 10?
I love Final
They're
Fantasy
just so linear.
Right?
I can't handle them.
No.
I need a good.
Just wait till you get to 10 too, and you get to have dresses.
Right? Oh, and the job. Oh.
All right, so back to Zelda.
Back to Zelda.
Let's talk about the look. It's a different style of animation.
It's similar to Wind Waker, though.
It is,
Which is great.
Which I love. Wind Waker is one of my favorite Zelda games.
Explain what are your opinions on the graphics? You said it's one of your favorites because it's similar to Wind Waker.
It's gorgeous.
It is, well, and I've talked to people about this because you look at games like Horizon Zero Dawn.
My wife is playing Horizon Zero Dawn right now.
Final
That
Fantasy
game is
15.
gorgeous.
They're gorgeous. They're very realistic. I liken it to that's a photo. You took a photo with your phone or a camera. It's pretty. It's very beautiful. Skyward Sword is a painting. It's a style.
You mean Breath of the Wild?
Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Yes.
Breath of the Wild, not Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword is just...
It's a pile of shit, according to you.
No, I mean, the animation and the stuff, the art style of Skyward Sword wasn't that bad, but...
Skyward Sword was kind of like Ocarina of Time, wasn't it?
It was a mixture of like Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, where they tried to make it a little more realistic, but have a little cartoony. But yeah, no, Breath of the Wild is definitely, it's like looking at a painting. That's my opinion, at least, where I look at it and go, this is pretty, I appreciate it. Yes, it's not realistic. It's not...
But the art direction is cohesive.
Yeah.
Yes.
What I'm hearing.
So the other thing that I really want to bring up at some time, and I think this is a perfect point too, is I loved Okami. And Okami got a lot of praise for being a lot like Legend of Zelda, just in a more open world and everything else. So when I play Breath of the Wild, I get this really strong feel from Okami, and Okami is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's weird because it's a cycle of nostalgia, because Okami was good because it reminded me of Legend of Zelda, and now Legend of Zelda is reminding me of Okami, which reminded me of Legend of Zelda, which is so it is this sort of cyclical thing.
So all the good feels.
Yeah,
all of them.
But the thing about Okami too was that graphically speaking, it wasn't that great. I mean, there's been a remaster and it's still gorgeous, but originally speaking, it was okay, but the real point of it was not the sort of fidelity of the graphics, it was the cohesiveness of the art style. And I also get this here, where everything feels like it fits. So you know how in old school animation you had that problem where you're like, oh, I know when somebody's gonna bust through that wall because it's a slightly different color than the rest of the animation frame, right? And there's a kind of a problem with that in old school games too, where you're just like, oh, obviously I need to place a bomb here because this looks a little bit different. There is none of that in Breath of the Wild. Everything looks like it belongs.
Well,
it is a cohesive environment.
It is cohesive, but you do know where you need to bomb things because they're cracked.
Yes, but they feel like they are part of the environment still. So it's not it feels like they're still rendered in the same way. It feels cohesive. They're noticeably different, but they're not it's not jarring you out of the experience. They're noticeably different that it catches your attention, not that it pulls you out of the experience.
It sounds like Breath of the Wild being not realistic and the realism is not there actually takes advantage of the console's power of, the console of the Nintendo Switch knows it's not a PS4.
Yeah.
So I think that should Nintendo continue to make games like this that are more non-realism, that would actually be a good thing for this console.
That being said, there are some really gorgeous things that I've noticed about this game that I think you might not get on the Wii U, and they are they're seamless. So they're things where you can, the physics of everything are really, really interesting. So you can essentially, one of the monster parts that you can get is sort of a balloon. So you can attach it to pretty much any item and it floats. And then you can use a Korok leaf and blow it places or do whatever you want. So you can technically pick up, so you can attach a balloon to an explosive barrel and then very slowly waft it over until it reaches an enemy camp, the balloon explodes and it drops and it explodes everywhere and it causes carnage. But the physics of it and the way everything attaches and everything moves is actually... it seems very, very powerful. Some of the interactions with like your environment, yes, the grass doesn't look as pretty as, say, Zero Dawn, but it's still really well rendered with that art style. And I think because it's not realistic, they do have more power to do more realistic physics stuff with this sort of lower fidelity art.
And also with that art style, I mean, they hold up. Like, I remember when they were talking about making the HD Wind Waker, and I was like, why? Like, and seeing it, it looked almost the exact same as it did on the GameCube. Playing it, I could see, yes, there was a difference, and it was pretty. But that art style holds up. Like, later systems, you can go back and go, oh yeah, it wasn't 3D realistic, but it's a pretty art style. But if you look at some of the games back then that had the photorealistic, they aren't really photorealistic. There's things that take you out, and I think it's going to be the same way.
Always get better, right?
And once they get better, you'll go back to like Horizon Zero Dawn and go, this game was kind of ugly. I mean, it wasn't, and it isn't.
20 years from now.
Yeah.
20 years from now, when you're playing,
the kids are going to be like, "What was this?"
Yeah, this was horrible.
Final Fantasy VII.
Exactly.
Just saying.
Well, Final Fantasy VII was never good looking.
Those polygons. Nuh-uh. Like, I was super impressed when, like...
It was very impressive when it first came out.
When it first came out, I was super impressed.
The first CG video that, is nothing like the gameplay, but it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Hush up. Final Fantasy VII was the height of gaming when it came out. I am sorry. I will stick by that.
Crash Bandicoot looked better than
Final
Fantasy VII.
I don't care.
Let's talk about performance. So you talked about a lot about the physics and, the way that things seem seamless. There's also a lot of open worldness to it. Did you run into any bugs, graphics things, or were you falling into the walls?
There's been 2 times. One, I was climbing up a wall, and like the rendered wall was actually slightly underneath the where the climbing like physics was. So like I kind of sunk into the wall for like, and it was only like 10 feet, like in game 10 feet. So I was like, it kind of took me out. And then there was another time I came across a boulder that the corner, like it was on a slope, but the rock wasn't reading the slope, so it was just kind of floating, and you could see the polygons underneath.
Yeah, but it took like 15 hours before we found that first one.
More than that. That was like week 2, and we're like, oh, this is the first one we've seen. And then, like I said, the rock climbing one was like a week after that.
Yeah, typically if a game is really buggy, people notice right away. And this is a 97 on Metacritic, so obviously if there were a few bugs, they're not noticeable.
Well, they were minor things that like it didn't take me out of the game. It was just like, oh, I can see under this rock, and it's.
It was the first. We actually got pretty excited because we were
like, I found a bug.
This was the first bug in a huge game.
I wish I could keep it and put it in a jar.
Yeah.
Right. We could take pictures of it, and we've been doing that a lot. I think I need to start doing that, where I just post all of the screenshots onto my Twitter from what we've been doing. But we've just been. I tamed a bear And I was just like, this is great. I'm going to take... So I turned off the HUD and I just took pictures of me riding this bear. And you can do that. You can just... it's so good and it's so amazing. And you could do so many different things. So, like, we've just been saying, oh, wow, that is super gorgeous. Like, we spent 15 minutes taking screen caps of lightning strikes.
How does the share button work on the Switch? What's the...
So, right now it's not technically share. It's just screen cap. So it just takes a screenshot of your screen. And then you can go in on the home menu. They have just screenshots. You know, they've taken menu button, whatever. Click on there. And then from there you can share.
So do you...
And I've...
Do they... From the home screen, are you able to share it via social media? Or
Yeah,
is it...
so it's Facebook and Twitter.
Okay.
So I have linked up Facebook on mine, not Twitter yet. And... I didn't actually post anything because, like, I had a friend, who's playing it as well. He posted a thing on Facebook with a screenshot he took of his link, and he's like, "Hey, everyone, post your link so we can see pictures of them." I was like, "Ah, cool." And then, like, somebody replied and did that, and then I went to do it and couldn't figure out how to get to that thread from there. Like, I could just post it to my wall, so it's not like super intuitive. I hope that they get to the point where, like, once the app is out, where I can go, okay, I want to go to this thread and post the screenshot to that thread instead of just only being able to post it to my wall. But then again, that being said, someone else did it. I just don't know how they did it.
They might have emailed it to themselves and then from whatever device gone from there.
Maybe.
There's a lot of potential. So there's definitely a lot of potential to do stuff with this, but the infrastructure for it is not very well set up yet.
So time will tell to see how that feature evolves. The next thing I want to talk about, we talked about the sights. Now I want to talk about the sounds. You know that Legend of Zelda has always had these beautiful songs that that we grow up with, and you can randomly hum. These musical scores. How does the musical score of Breath of the Wild hold up?
So my opinion on that is, it does have beautiful music when it's playing.
And it's mostly piano based, is that correct?
Yeah, it's mostly piano based, and there's some violin too in some of them. But like I said, my biggest problem is the overworld, and I know why they did this. They have their song play, but it's like a piano, like a few notes here, silence for like a good 20 seconds, then another few notes, silence, then another few notes, and they did that to make it, I guess, the world feel expansive. But really, it makes it so you never hear the song, because like between during that silence, you'll like get near an enemy and the enemy music will start, and then like you get away and then you'll get the silence again, and then the song starts over, and I'm just like, just give me something, because like some of the songs they play, like you have these dragon guardians flying throughout the world. There's 3 of them, and they'll just randomly, if they get close to you, it starts playing their music, and it's just this pretty like flute.
We'll just stop whatever we're doing, and we'll just sit there and listen to it and watch the dragons, because oh god, the dragons are just gorgeous, because they're huge and you can't really tell unless you are right up next to them, and they kick up wind and they interact with their environment, but from a distance they're just gorgeous as they sort of just soar through the skies. And like the first time we saw them, we were super excited because we pulled out the Sheikah Slate camera and we were like, oh no, we need pictures of this, right?
What was that? Because like the first time we only saw the tail of it. It was like, because like you can see them all like from miles and miles and miles away. That's how big they are. Yeah. But back to their music, they have the prettiest song playing when you're near them. But it's only when you're near them. And I'm just like, just make that the overworld theme. Or there's one, like, they have like different conditions for songs. So if you're on a horse at night, you get like a melody, piano melody / the original like overworld theme on violin. And it's really very pretty. But again, you only hear it if you're on a horse at night. And I'm just like, no, just make that the overworld theme always. Screw the dumb piano silence song.
I'm actually of the opposite opinion. So I do agree, and I like the music, and I think I like how it's handled. I wish there was a little bit more music. We have, because we got the Master Edition, so we also have the soundtrack. The soundtrack's not very big. The soundtrack's incredibly small.
Oh, it doesn't have every song on it
yeah,
either. It doesn't
yeah.
have the Dragon Song or Terrytown or...
Yeah.
There's just a bunch of songs missing from it that are really good.
So it seems like the largest complaint is just that the overworld music could have been a little more
Yes.
prominent.
I actually don't agree with it. I think that it's fine the way it is, and I think what happens is when you do have music that's supposed to tug on your heartstrings, like for the memories, they are more impactful
That is
because
true.
you haven't been spammed with the theme. The theme comes up, you know it's important.
That's true.
So when you hear the theme, it hits all of those nostalgia buttons. But if you had the theme more in the game, I think that would make it harder for you to get that just strong emotional response. And I do think you have strong emotional responses to those memories that come up, like the actual cinematics, because you haven't been hit over and over and over with that.
And from an overworld feel, I mean, the game is a little bit lonely, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's a very lonely game. It's you and nature.
There's quite a few travelers and people walking around, actually.
It is
Near the
Compared to
roads.
other Zelda games, my impression
Yeah.
of it, Breath of the Wild, was there's a little sense of as you're traveling. and
Yeah, as you're
exploring,
as you're traveling,
there's a sense of loneliness
because
there.
there is actually more people in this game than any Zelda game besides maybe Adventures of Link, where you just have NPCs
Sure.
just
Oh,
show
yeah,
up
yeah.
randomly. But yeah, no, there's tons of people in this game. Because
Yeah.
that was one of the complaints from the E3 demos, like, oh, it looks too lonely. And it's like, well, that's because we just showed you the Great Plateau, where there is only 2 people on the plateau, like when you first wake up.
Now-
You and the old guy, that is it. And monsters.
Now, can I also very quickly say, holy shit, all of the town NPCs are so different. Like, I went into like the Gerudo town. All of the Gerudo women, they have different skin tones, they have different body types. You can identify which one you are looking for. They have different ages. So there are young Gerudo, sort of adult Gerudo, and older Gerudo women. So you have a bunch of diversity in those characters. And when you go and meet all of the Rito,
The Zora,
the Zora, the Gorons, right? They all have. Well, the Gorons are a little bit harder, but they do have.
They do have
different skin
shades
tones and
everything,
different
yeah.
shapes and
Different
and
hairstyles.
and different rocks. But
yeah, 'cause-
they are all diverse. They didn't just take a skin and reskin for all of the different NPCs. Like there's Gerudo women who are heavier set. I believe there's an albino one. Like it is ridiculous how much detail went into all of these individual characters, and they are NPCs. And sometimes you just see them once and that's it. Other times you may notice that they walk a path back and forth between towns, but it's ridiculous. All of the Zora have like different. You can tell. Oh, this one's based on a manta ray. This one's based on a shark. This one's based on. So there are, and they're so diverse. It's every part of this game, and you wonder why it took so long to come out. It's because every part of this game has been micromanaged to make it as gorgeous of an experience as possible.
Those details alone make it sound like the future of these Legends of Zelda games are just, yeah, to your point, we've seen so many other A-list titles do this, and Zelda's finally at that point. Do you feel there's also a vulnerability with that in terms of, will this be hard to live up to?
Oh my god, yes. It took so long to get here. If we want Zelda games of this quality, we're gonna have to wait. I'm okay with waiting because holy shit, was this worth it? But yeah, if we want something of this scale, then...
Although I feel like Nintendo's probably learned from this experience and they could do it a little bit faster.
Okay.
But I still feel like, I mean, yes.
Because you normally only get a Zelda game per console generation.
2 if you're lucky.
2 if you're lucky. Like...
Yeah, 64 had 2. Technically, the GameCube had 2, but it was the same thing where it was GameCube and Wii.
it sounds like it would make sense if Nintendo really wanted to milk this franchise for the Switch, is they would already get on making, if not a sequel, then something that's related, so that they could use the same engine, use the same graphics, and then because it sounds like fans are immensely satisfied with what they're getting here. Why start from scratch? Just build another story with what you've already got, right? Or is that hard to do because it is Legend of Zelda?
I mean, that's what they did with Majora's Mask. I mean, kind of. I mean, they did.
No, it was.
But it wasn't. It was a different situation where Miyamoto gave Anamura, or how do you say his name?
You were so bad at that.
I am so bad at that. But like, he's like, all right, you have a year to make another Zelda game using the same engine. Go for it.
So let's hope. I mean, I think that there's a lot of potential there.
I think this is something that developed a bunch. I think when we got A Link Between Worlds, a lot of the stuff that makes this game really, really good, we started to see in A Link Between Worlds.
It's true.
And the idea, because you can go to the dungeons in any order that you would like. And they are set up that you don't have to have really high quality stuff. You can cook yourself a few meals, and as long as you've grabbed yourself enough arrows, you should be able to go through each dungeon. So there are things that'll make dungeons go a lot faster and easier, but you don't have to have them.
Yeah, because for the most part, each dungeon, like the big main dungeons, like they're just a series of puzzles. So, I mean, there's a few enemies here and there, but they're not like super tough enemies until you reach the boss enemy. But yeah, for the most part, it's just you can do them in any order. As long as you can figure out the puzzles, you should be fine.
So we got sights, we got sounds. What are the controls like? It's obviously not Skyward Sword.
That's my biggest complaint actually about this game is the controls.
They have so much. It's so much. It does get overwhelming. And like we're still we are almost to the point where we can take on Ganon, and there are still times where I'm like, oh, equip this sword. Oh, no, wait, no, that's my bow. No, that's my shield. Oh, what am I doing? Right. So there are times it's not as completely cohesive and
intuitive.
It's not very intuitive. And I feel like if they had actually looked at other RPGs, like even Borderlands or
do you get to customize where you're
no
so is that the biggest complaint?
There's one button you could, if you don't like jump as X, you could make it B button and then X will be your B button. I'm like, no, that's not the issue. Let me customize it and go like, I want my Y to be jump. I want my want my joystick press to be run, not crouch. Because that's the most annoying thing. You try to run from something and you accidentally push the joystick too hard.
Because you're freaking out about this enemy.
Because this giant enemy's about to mow you down. So you're trying to run away and then you hit it and your guy just like crouches and just starts crawling along.
What is sprint in the game?
B.
Okay.
So I'm just...
We had a big discussion, and we with a few other people, like, what would you intuitively think of as jump? And we all came up with different answers on what button we would map everything. And it's like, you
need to have an option to be able to either map everything or just several different control layouts.
And so if you're trying to switch your weapon, what options do you have?
It's technically the right D-pad, so where the D-pad would be on most controllers. So right D-pad is sword, left D-pad is shield. If you're holding the arrow button, which is R, or no, it's the ZR, the trigger, then right is bow and left is arrows. But then, so trigger R is your bow, but just top R is throw your melee weapon. So there's been so many times I've tried to pull
out... So you can throw your melee weapons.
You can throw your melee weapons. But there's been so many times I've tried to pull out my bow to shoot somebody, and so he like does this get ready to throw his sword animation. I was like, wait, no, don't do that. Hold on, B, and I'll try to cancel out of it, and then he'll just throw it. I'm like, now I don't have a weapon. I've lost a weapon off a cliff that way before.
Yeah.
And it was in a shrine. where they are bottomless pits. So there's no, like, in most, if I was in the outside world, if I dropped down a cliff, it's like, that's gonna be a pain. I just gotta climb down there and get it. But no, this was in a shrine where I was like, I need to shoot the arrow. Wait, that's it. And there goes that sword.
So is it mostly gamepad traditional, or is there any motion or touchpad type of
There are
functionality?
some
You can turn on the gyroscope or whatever to help aim assist, but that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. And
But
you
you
can
turn
turn
that
that
off.
off. Yeah.
So, but needless to say, you don't have to waggle for anything.
No waggling.
Technically, some of the shrines do require, so
Okay,
they
the
have
gyroscope,
mechanisms,
yeah.
where you set the controller and then you twist to do like labyrinth, like moving a ball across a path.
Sure.
And we found out very quickly how to game the system and basically flip the ball in the air and then rotate the stage so you bypass the maze and you just hop it over a wall, and therefore
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
That is one good thing about the game is since it's all physics based, there's so many different ways to solve everything. Because that was one thing I hate about other Zelda games is you had to solve it their way. And there were so many times you go, I know how to solve this, and you're like, oh wait, that's not working because they purposely broke this item that I want to use, so I have to do it their stupid way.
To be fair, there are some ways that and we've both done this, where we've been going through shrines and we watch the other person go through, and they just go through a super convoluted path, and we're just like, you could have done this. And we're like, God damn it! Right? Oh, but there is a thing. So there are these puzzles where wind moves a target along, and moves essentially a ball into a pedestal. We figured out if you stand in the pedestal and drop the ball by your feet so it can't actually roll in, you can use the stasis, freeze the ball, run where you need to go, and then the stasis will go through and you can bypass the entire puzzle.
So who is the quicker puzzle solver? Was it you or Tay?
It depends on the type of puzzle.
Yeah.
So I sometimes forget I have certain skills, and I just go, I just gotta stasis everything.
Yeah, he just stasis everything and then beats it up and then it explodes everywhere.
The way
and it
stasis
works.
is you stasis certain objects, but then if you beat it, it'll retain that kinetic energy, and then when the stasis breaks, all that kinetic energy
that potential energy
will turn into kinetic energy. Yes, science. So like,
sorry, physics.
Yeah, physics. You can freeze a ball, beat on it, and then when stasis ends, every time you hit it is now all hitting it at once, and the ball goes flying. So there's been a few puzzles where I'm like, oh, I did it this way, and she's like, you could have just done this, and she'll pull out the freeze block, and it just like solves it. I was like, well, I guess you could do it that way. It's not as fun.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few where. But I had, like I said, I had fun doing it. I was like, oh, I got to stasis this and then get it just right and hit it just right. It'll be fun.
There have been a few shrines where because the shrines are all named for the monks that are in them, and there are times where we say that monk's name and like, your puzzle is bad and you should feel bad. Like,
yeah.
there have been a few shrines where just like, this is
horrible.
I hate this. But there have been times where we've done stuff. So the way that you can combat enemies is just amazingly diverse, because you can go in and you can just whack at it all you want, and if you have all of the weapons that you want, you can do it.
So assuming you can access your sword and assuming that you can access your bows and arrows, what is combat like?
So the best thing I have watched him do is the Hinox, which is the very big sort of like moblin, Cyclops moblin type of deal. He found that nearby there was a slab. And he stasised the slab and then essentially hit the slab hard enough that it launched into the air in this beautiful arc, landed right on the moblin or on the Hinox, and knocked out like a third of its life. It was gorgeous, and he just looked around and he couldn't find him because he was so far away, and then he went back down to lay back down to sleep, and then he came in and did the proper thing, but he knocked off so much life. And it's just the little things that you are allowed to do. And
like, they have the Lionels, which are pretty much giant centaur lions, man lions, who are big. They're the hardest enemy in the game so far that we've encountered. And they have a thing where if you stun them, so if you shoot an arrow, get them right in the face, or there's a few other ways you can stun them. But it's hard to stun them. But if you actually can stun them, you can mount them. And you will hop on their back. So normal, like if a horse, you mount on a horse, you soothe it. So you're like, hey. You can't do that with the Lionel. So you just sit there and beat it with your sword while you're riding it bareback.
While it flails around trying to buck you off. And no, because somebody said, one of the programmers
NPC.
looked at it and said, you know what? People will try to ride anything because you can ride bears, you can ride deer, you can ride the horses. You can't ride the moose, which makes us
weird.
sad. But you can ride a bear. You can tame bears. This is great. So all of these different things you can ride, and then you get to these Lionels, and the designers must have thought, you know what? The first thing they're going to think is, can I ride this? And they made it happen. And there is actually an NPC who walks around who tells you about different gossip, and he goes, so I hear you can ride a Lionel. Disclaimer, it is probably a horrible idea to ride a Lionel. Don't try it. But under certain circumstances, you can do it. So
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I rode a few Lionels now at this point.
I have not yet done it. I've beat them. So one time I beat a Lionel by getting it struck by lightning. So I managed to fight this Lionel during a thunderstorm, and I knew I had Mifa's Grace equipped, and this is a special thing that allows you to come back to life without using fairies, and so I knew I had Mifa's Grace up, and I started sparking with one of my weapons, because I had to pull it out to very quickly start attacking, and I was like, okay. And I let myself get struck by lightning, and it killed both me and the Lionel, but I came right back to life. And I was like, worth it! Easy! Done! Right? So,
Yeah.
I didn't have things like, I didn't have Urbosa's Fury at that point, so I couldn't actually electrocute
Eventually
it,
you get to the point where you can summon your own lightning.
you can call down the lightning, it's great.
Are you Thor?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are super awesome, Thor.
So
So you both sound like this was worth the investment, yes?
yes,
Oh, yeah.
it's a great game. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Not every minute,
And I
there are
admit,
some
there's
shy, but...
well, there's a few little side quests that are kind of dumb. Like they have one. I've heard people complain about it where it's like a stealth quest, where it's like, so this whole game is exploration, and then you get pigeonholed into the stealth quest where it's like, oh, you can't solve this you have to solve this one way because you're in the Lost Woods. If you wander too far from the path, you have to start over. If you get too close to the guy, you have to start over.
Yeah.
And so I've heard so many people like spend hours on it. Like it took me, like I did it in 2 attempts. Like I messed up once and oh, okay, I know what to do now. And like I did it. But apparently so many people they're like, that is the worst quest in the game. And I'm just like,
I did it on my first try, but at the end, I noticed that in order to actually hide, I had picked the worst part to hide behind because I was at this tree that marked the edge of the Lost Woods. So like if I tried to get too far in, the mist was slowly coming in and the music gets louder to let you know that you screwed up. So I was just like, oh, move out. Oh no, he can see me. Move back. Oh no. So I had to keep moving back and forth to try, and I still managed to do it, but it was very tense.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it wasn't bad enough to make me go, that was the worst thing ever. It was just,
So we've been able to talk about a lot of the main reasons to play this game. It is the highest rated game right now on Metacritic.
For good reason.
It's higher than Nier Automata that came out, higher than Horizon Zero Dawn, which my wife and I have been playing.
That's still a good game.
Not
to diss on any.
That would have been Game of the Year if it hadn't come out 2 days before Zelda.
Yeah,
sure. I mean, higher than Mass Effect right now. So, what are the biggest reasons? Like, if you were to have to pitch to tell your neighbor to go buy this game. And you have one in the room because I'm not an early adopter.
The watching Tay pick up a Kuko and throw it off the cliff while yelling "Go home" was probably one of the funniest things that I've seen so far. I got to ride a bear.
She got to ride a bear.
I got to ride a bear.
There are so many things in that game that like you just don't expect. You'll just be going along and suddenly you go, "Huh? I wonder if." Yep, I can do that. And then you just do it, and it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know, again, this is a kind of spoilery, kind of, not story-wise, But like, if you'll note, so they have the blood moon, and every night before the blood moon, if you actually look out to the east, I think it is.
The west, it's
West,
Satori
yeah.
Mountain.
Yeah, so you look out towards the west, you'll notice a mountain with just this like aqua blue light shining from it, and it kind of looks
like
like
the Luxor.
kind of looks like a Rory Borealis, but you can see it from like. And I remember the first time we saw it, they're like, "What the hell
What
is
is
that?"
it?
So
And we tried,
and we didn't have any like travel points near or anything, so we kept traveling as close as possible because we couldn't tell where it was exactly. It was like we just kept moving west until we're like, okay, it's definitely there. And we got to run there. And by the time I got there, it was morning, so it was gone. And I was like, what was it? And so we were like, well, maybe it'll come up back next night. And the next night was a blood moon, and the light wasn't there. And it wasn't until like in-game a week, I mean, it was probably a few days for us, I noticed it again. I was like, there it is! It comes up once a week, or once a night, or once, whatever the time frame is. But it comes up once before the blood moon. And so I rush there, and I get there, and it's a spring with all these little, they're called loopies, which they're like spirit bunnies that if you shoot with arrows, they give you a bunch of money. Like they'll drop money and run away. And I was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of bloopies. I'm going to get so much money. And Kay was there, and she's like, what about the big horse? I was like, what are you... Holy crap, there's a giant bloopy horse. And he's just walking around.
And we're like, can you ride it? Can you ride it?
My first thought was, I wonder how much money it's going to give me when I shoot it.
Yeah.
And she's like, can you ride it? And I was like, oh, that's an even better idea. And so we then spent the next 15 minutes trying to get on this horse, bloopy thing. And then we had to tame it, and like... I didn't have a ton to stay on at this point, and taming... So when you get on a horse, it'll try to buck you off, and it'll cost stamina to stay on it. And second you're out of stamina,
Is that the only reason you use
get
stamina?
bucked off.
What else do you
Also
use?
climbing, running, swimming,
paragliding.
every action pretty much. So like I'm running out of stamina. I was like, oh no, pause the game real quick. What do I have food-wise that'll give me stamina? Oh, there we go. And so I just kept, every time it would get near the bottom, pause the game, scarf something down, give me more stamina. And after several attempts, I finally tamed it. And I was like, oh, I did it. And so...
I was like, take it to the stable. Let's see if we can register this thing.
And then I had to figure out how to get the thing off the mountain, because I was like, wait, there wasn't a trail up to this spring. It turns out there was. We just took a different way, climbed up a cliff to get there. But eventually found a trail. We walked down, I get to the stable, I go to register, and he's like, oh, you got a new horse. Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and wait a second. What are you doing? That's the Lord of the Mountain. Do you want us on curse? Let it go. So I was like, well, screw you. So I leave, and I start running with this thing, and it has infinite stamina. Like,
yeah, you can keep running, and
you just bounce A, and it just, by the time you're done hitting A, like, because they have little
spurs
that
like represent how many times you can spur on your horse.
Yeah. And by the time you hit A, one goes away. Before you can hit it again, it refills. So he's just constantly full of stamina, and so you can just ride forever. Like this, I'm like, this is awesome. This is great. And then you hit morning, and he just fades away.
Oh.
I was like, ah,
no. Yeah, because you can't stable a bear because they're like, oh, let's get this. Hey, this ain't a horse. And you're like, no, but I want this bear. I want to saddle on this bear. There's also a giant horse. And
so you can stable the giant horse.
Yes, you can.
Horse.
Yeah,
you can't stable the mythical horse or the dead horse because
you can also ride
there's
a stall horse.
The Stalos who pop out at night. There's skeleton versions of all the different bad guys. But there's also a Stalos rider who's riding a skeleton horse. If you knock the rider off, you can take the horse and tame that horse. If you take it to the stable, they go, that's a monster. We can't do that. It'll eat all our horses. I'm like, dude, it doesn't even have a stomach. It's not going to eat the horses.
Right?
But then same thing with that one. Second morning hits, it
fall apart
and bucks you off and then just dies.
So I need to buy this game just so I can tame bears and horses and dead horses.
Oh, the giant horse. Oh my god.
Those things are fun. So those are just all the little fun things about the game. The game itself, the gameplay, it's fun. The story's really good.
Yes.
Yeah, without any major spoilers, we've talked a lot about Link. Where is Zelda?
Zelda's being awesome.
So that's the game starts out. This isn't a spoiler. So you wake up in this resurrection tube, and they're like, "Oh, hey, good, you woke up. You've been dead for 100 years, being resurrected slowly over the last 100 years. So Ganon showed up and shit went down. You died. Again, got taken here, so bringing you back. Zelda is in the castle holding him off so he doesn't devour the rest of Hyrule. Go save her and help her defeat Ganon. Because, like in all Zelda games, you need Zelda and Link working together to actually defeat Ganon. With one or the other, you can hold
in this
back
game,
Ganon.
Zelda's being badass and actually.
So this is
She's always right. She always
helps out, but yeah,
she
usually,
gets so much characterization in this.
She is like one of the best characters. in the
I'm
game.
willing.
And
I love her so much.
We haven't even met her yet.
Yeah. So everything we see about her is via the memories and her diary. Because once you finally get to her room in Hyrule Castle, that's where the last memory is, just outside. I'm going to spoil because this is amazing characterization. She can't do shit. So she starts out and she has no powers. She can't do
and
so.
She's expected
to because she is the princess who is going to seal away Ganon, and she can't do anything. She spent her entire life praying and trying to work through this and going to the proper springs, and it's heartbreaking. There's one of the memories that you find is her just sitting in this water praying and going, "What is wrong with me? Why won't you let me help everyone?" And she can't do anything. So instead, she becomes a scientist and she tries to get all of the technology that's around ready to defeat Ganon. Because she can't, at this point, seal it. So she's trying to do other things. But the king is just like, no, stop this. Other people are working on this. You need to work on sealing him. And she's like, I can't. There's nothing. I can't do anything. And it's her inability that gets everyone killed. And essentially she goes through and it's just her heartbreak of just like, I've tried so hard. She goes to the last shrine and then Ganon shows up and she's just like, I can't do this. And everyone dies and she's just sitting there going, it's my fault. And I've worked so hard and I can't do this. And I don't know why or what's wrong with me. And it's just heartbreaking to have seen her go through all of this, trying so hard. And then everybody's dead. And then you see her you see the final memory with Link, and it's how Link. Well, I don't think he dies. He gets very close, but he probably
very
dies.
close.
Yeah,
close to dying, and they put him in the chamber. It's like it's going to be 100 years before you're healed.
Yeah. So it's that point where she gets her powers now. She's covered in blood and dirt in her ceremonial garb, and he's collapsed and everything, and she's just like, all right, enough. And she just like jumps in front of him to save him from one of the guardians that Ganon takes over, and boom, she has power now. And then it's just been 100 years of her sitting in this castle fighting off Ganon. And just keeping him contained in the shell of her burnt out and broken home. And it's just like this is not just Princess Zelda, just passively you need to rescue her. She is essentially the only thing standing between Hyrule and certain ruin at this point, or certain calamity at this point. And it's her being badass now and just keeping everything, but you need the both of them, because at first, if it's only Link, he gets the shit beat out of him. If it's only her, well, she can only keep him contained for so long. It has to be both of them, and that's something I really like, because it's not just, it is a lot of, oh, you need to save our princess, but you need to save our princess who's been kicking ass for 100 years. So it's just, I love her as a character because she gets so excited about science and the world around her and trying to figure out, because she knows what she can and cannot do, and she's just so upset about what she can't do, but she makes up for it by trying to be a scholar. And I really like this Zelda, because there are certain times where I like the other characters. Like, I definitely like Midna more than that Zelda.
That Zelda didn't do anything.
Yeah, that Zelda did nothing. There's no characterization. Why do we even care about her? I cared more about Midna. And that in
that one you were supposed to.
Yeah, and in that entire game, it was all about helping Midna.
That's why it's the Twilight
Princess. Yeah. So in this game, though, in Breath of the Wild, it is all about Zelda, and they make you care about her. And it's just like, yeah, I really need to help her out because holy shit, she has gone through a lot. And it is. She's just sitting among the corpses of all of her people that she failed for 100 years, waiting for you to come back and help her finish the job.
Well, I think that preview into Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is convincing enough for me to want to take a look. That looked very interesting, actually, and hearing just the characterization of Zelda. I'm a very story-based
Yeah,
player.
me too.
I love playing games that have really good stories, and we've had successes and some failures when it comes to Legend of Zelda in terms of story, but this one does sound like a winner. Closing thoughts.
Buy this game. It's gorgeous.
This game is amazing and great, and I think it's also the proof we needed that the timeline is bullshit.
I've heard that too.
Okay, so we also haven't beat Ganon at this point, so we have spoilers for I'm pretty sure 95% of the game right now. But we may change our mind after we beat the game.
Maybe,
so,
but I'm pretty sure it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot out there right now about the timeline. Well, good luck.
It just means that Hyrule Warriors is canon, right?
Exactly.
Right?
If Hyrule Warriors is canon, this game makes sense in the timeline.
Right? This is great.
Good luck with the ending of the game. Maybe we'll recap again and talk something separate. But I think overview of Breath of the Wild. It's a couple weeks since it's been released now. It's the best game out there. If you haven't bought a Nintendo Switch, if you have the ability to find one, this is a valuable game to pick up. So enjoy 2017, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos by us, click the thumbnails. It should take you to one of our latest video antics. And, as always, be sure to like and subscribe to help us out. Or you can click here to support us over at Patreon to help us create even more quality content. Until next time, thanks again for watching.